Hello and welcome to the Great Point North, your destination for the iciest cold takes from the frozen wastelands of the north. I'm your host, Charles Constantine, and with me is NP. Say hello, NP.
Hello.
How's it going tonight?
Really good. Man, I just crushed it today.
Oh man, that's awesome to hear.
Except I just remembered my laundry downstairs. But
Yeah,
other than that,
well,
crushed it.
Laundry's easy.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. It's getting the job done. That's what's key.
Yeah. What else? I made a chili tonight. Watched some Blade Runner.
No,
Very
Whoa.
good stuff.
it's a top tier combo. Blade Runner and chili. Do you like the original one better, or like the new one better?
You know what? I haven't seen the new one yet, which is why I watched
no
the
way.
old one. I'm gonna watch the new one next. I hadn't seen the old one
Yeah,
in like 10, 15 years, so.
Okay.
Except I watched I
Yeah,
don't
the
know
first-
which is the best cut. I watched the final cut from 1997. I hope that's correct.
Yeah, I don't really know the details of that. I think I watched the final cut too. Actually, what I did when I watched those movies is I read the original short story, "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" Then I watched the original one, and then I watched the new one, like all in an order, like just made a marathon of it. And
Nice.
it was worth it. It was all good stuff. I think the new one. I like the new one, honestly. I think it was might be controversial, but I think it was a step above the original in some ways.
Oh, are you getting stomped at?
Yeah. Anyways, let's get into it. So we got a couple things on the docket today. We got this whole CBC being labeled a state-affiliated media and how they're coping and crying about it. Then we have another talk about Canadian exceptionalism in the world wars. And then we'll finish off talking a little bit about the necessity of having your own space and how we got to go about doing that and the right attitude towards building our own spaces. But first off, I think like this is just basically breaking news. It's all happening today. So how much have you seen of this whole CBC controversy on Twitter?
I just I saw what Elon Musk did, and then I saw their response thread. Check. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so basically
Is Toronto winning are the Blue Jays winning, or is it the hockey game?
I don't know which one's which right now, but yeah. So what we got going on with the CBC thing here is, I guess Elon Musk gave the CBC a designation as state-affiliated media, like he does. He did it for NPR as well, and I think NPR, they just, once that happened to them, they like quit. Like they literally just took their Twitter account off the site because they're just crying and complaining about a threat against their credibility. And then so the CBC is following suit. They're getting labeled as a state-affiliated media, and they just took their accounts off. They said they're not going to be posting on Twitter anymore. And like, first of all, we kind of predicted this. You're saying, look at how out of touch is Canadian government and Canadian media with the whole bill.
C11?
C51?
51?
C11?
Yeah, I can't remember the
Whatever
number.
bills. But
Yeah.
the whole deal with them trying to get social media companies to capitulate to their whims and to get the journalists paid for their work.
Right.
Like we said, they're at the whim of the social media company. The social media company
Right.
doesn't need you on it.
Right.
And
Twitter
here they
suffers
go,
not at
showing
all.
Yeah.
In fact, it
So
might
here they go,
improve.
just doubling down on their ignorance at the changing landscape. No, sorry, your state media doesn't matter. Like, they don't care. You don't have the power. These people that run these decentralized technological companies, they're the ones that matter.
Do you know what really bothers me about this? Their claim,
Mhm.
first of all, that they're independent, whatever. I don't care that they think they're that. That actually bothers me worse than, like, don't we deserve a state media? Like, how do we know what the government's trying to tell us? We deserve like a sanctioned media where that will directly voice to us the will and tenets or whatever of the state. Otherwise, what reputable source do we have to go to?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think we should tackle that angle of things because, I mean, you see the Contards doing, oh, it's the CCP influence on Canada, and this is the communists with their state controlled, and they don't like the freedom coming after them. Like, it's there's that side, and then there's the other side. There's the liberals going, oh, this is the threat to our sacred democracy, and the reality is somewhere not even in between. It's completely out of depth of what either of these two sides take into consideration on this topic. Because, like you said, there's actually some value in just having a transparent state media.
Yeah,
Like, because no, there's
that's why they were made.
This is part of the problem with this whole, like, founding all of your ideals on this liberal notion of freedom. Because while it's like what they posted. They said our journalism is impartial and independent. To suggest otherwise is untrue. That is why we are pausing our activities on Twitter.
Oh, if it's independent, then who's telling me this shit? Like, we're just some fucking Yahoo?
In what world do you get, like, there's no impartiality. And they're acting like they're being accused of being a propaganda outlet. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, propaganda, like, news is propaganda, media is propaganda. That, like, it is what it is. Well, but they have to constantly run cover because they founded everything on this liberal notion of being absolutely free and impartial and independent.
Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to tell us what Justin Trudeau's saying or whatever. I don't like what he's saying, but it's important that we know it.
And this is where the Contards go off the wrong side too, is where they think they're okay. These guys are the communists. These guys aren't impartial. This is evil propaganda. We need the real independent, but it's like there is no real independent because the guys that you like are also talking from bias.
What's more, if they're independent, they'll just be independent. You have no control over that. Mm-hmm. Unless you go and do it yourself. Then you're the independent.
Now, some of the nuance in this too is, like, technically speaking, in like very, if we're being really pedantic, yeah, the CBC is correct. The government isn't absolutely controlling the CBC because there is that public sponsorship. It is publicly funded technically, it's on a purely governmentally ran organization.
70%.
In the sense of like a Stalin, like something from Stalin or USSR. So yeah, technically they're right.
Wouldn't it be nice for them to operate at 2/3 of the budget but have no ads?
Well, and technically they do have some editorial freedom. Like there's that separation, like in the actual structure of it, there is that separation where it's not government body taking into consideration every single editorial that comes through the journalists. But just because that separation is there doesn't mean that it's not still ran according to the state ideology.
Yeah, right? Yeah. CBC, you have editorial freedom. Say the N-word.
Yeah.
Get Peter Mansbridge to say the N-word.
Yeah, and that's like an extreme example, but it doesn't have to be that extreme. Like, when are they ever going to allow them to be so far out of step with the regime liberal ideology that it actually can challenge any of it in a meaningful way? So no, yeah, of course it's not really independent. It's only independent through pedantic definitions of how these things operate. And again, this is all of them. They're just using these pedantic arguments to run cover for the fact that no, nothing operates in this truly liberal, ideal, like free, ideal way, because that's not the reality of things.
Yeah. No, I don't want to defund the CBC. I think maybe a little bit, but or balance the budget a little bit. I don't care, but it'll need something like that budget to run a state-operated media. I want it to call itself the state media, and I want it to promote Canadian I want it to play Jagged Little Pill 3 times a day, etc., etc.
Yeah, there's a lot of good that could come out of that, and it's not like you just can't have any media body whatsoever, because it doesn't even have to be purely propaganda. You can just be reporting on natural disasters, like just
Well,
general
that's a great
events that people
example.
need to know
What
about.
if there's an evacuation order?
Yeah,
Then
like you
they
can't just
like
be like, we're so set on freedom that we won't have anyone responsible for covering those emergency stories that need to get out to the
the
public.
government will
Like,
send
no,
me
you need that.
45 fucking chug alerts on my fucking personal phone that have nothing to do with me, but it won't just have a radio station that I can tune into.
Yeah, no,
Fuck that.
that's exactly it. It's just it's just like all this work to do to just run cover for this, again, idealistic notion of pure freedom and partiality, and but again, for what? What did any of that accomplish? You're just back in the same spot, only it's just more lame and less effective. Because now no one believes in any of this stuff. Because even though there is, like, again, even though the CBC is technically correct on the very nuanced aspects of the relationship to the media, the government to the CBC, no one cares, because now that's like, just you just look dumb now,
Who
because not
assumed it
only
wasn't? Like
that's, yeah, well,
this is
apparently a
what's
bunch of
getting me.
libtards uh, apparently a bunch of libtards believe that we have this ideal
Except I
approach
think
to the
they only
media.
started believing that this morning because I've never heard anybody even
Yeah,
remotely
yeah, well,
think that.
yeah, exactly.
It's
No, it
called the
was
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's got the Government of
yeah,
Canada
like
flag on all the shows it makes. It says Government of Canada.
yeah, like it's just insane. There's one tweet. Are you seriously calling one of Canada's largest news organizations propaganda and not news? That's a lie. And framing it in this way, you're attacking accountability, the truth, and democracy. Do you care? It's like, well, yeah, of course it's propaganda. And I think when people call like the CBC, well, it's not real news. Okay, well, that's kind of just, that's not true.
It's as real of
It does
news as
actually report
any
on real things.
corporate news
Like,
is.
um, but the idea that this is just being honest about what a government media actually is attacking the truth and attacking democracy. Well, no, like even in even in our current notion of democracy, you can actually just have a state-run media, and it can still
We,
be a
we, we
democracy. It's not like
deserve a state run media instead of a Jew run media.
yeah, no, it
Because that's what independent freedom of the press and all that just means jury.
yeah, it's just letting people get away with spinning the stories towards their ends without having, again, this is actually the reality, is they don't now have accountability when they can frame it this way, when they can frame it as, oh, it's not really a state-run media, then you making that implication is attacking democracy. Well, no, you pretending like you're not, that's what's more damaging to the accountability, because now when you're free from that notion that you are responsible to the people, um, then you get away with all this garbage that attacks and manipulates people towards self-destruction.
So, in other words, it's a great metaphor for all the problems of liberalism and everything wrong with our government. This incident.
Pretty much,
Like, instead, the only thing
it sums it
freedom
up
means is
completely.
freedom from responsibility, basically.
Yeah,
No limitations.
basically.
Freedom from moral decency. No one ever fights for their
Yeah, I think
freedom for moral decency. They just act morally
no,
decent.
it's
Oh, I lost
because
you.
it just boils down to negative freedom at the end of the day, and this is perfect, another perfect example. And I think are we back?
You're back. You're back.
We're back. Okay. I think, yeah, it's just another example of this ideology of negative freedom. And even the contards that are pushing back against the CBC are demonstrating the same mindset. They're still adopting the same frame. But the key here is that this is fundamentally undermine their credibility. And like, no one's going to approach this stuff anymore with any sense of legitimacy. And it's, I mean, say what you will about Elon Musk, but he kind of he kind of forced their hand. It's pretty bad. Like, it's a massive blunder for the CBC to take this and then just to shut off all of their social media on Twitter, the biggest sharing platform, biggest social media platform out there. Like, yeah, talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. Like, good job.
Huffy little
You just
babies.
played into Elon's hand. Like, this guy's like, he didn't even really seem to care that much, but then they reacted, did the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
And then he did the like 69%. He made the 69% joke on them. Like, oh, we're less than 70% government funded. And then he just 69%. Like, wow, you just got trolled by this guy who doesn't really care that much because you guys overreacted. Like, good job, you idiots.
The CBC is the Christian of state media outlets.
Oh, it's a pretty deep cut there.
The C is actually for Quickville.
Dang. So yeah, that's that. Like we said, we were vindicated again. We said this. Government of Canada, out of touch, way behind the times. They don't understand where power is shifting to.
I would fire everyone who works for them except for Rich Turfry and Stuart McLean. You know, some of those old guys. But
that's fair. That's fair. Anyways, this is a perfect thing. If you're listening, this perfect thing that you can bring to your friends and family and just say, hey, look how goofy this whole thing is. Like, there's no legitimacy. We have more legitimacy than the CBC now. You know, so that's that. I think the next thing I wanted to jump into now, we'll jump from Canadian is failure here. But even not even call it Canadian failure, because how much of this is really emblematic of Canadians. But we're gonna jump to.
They've surrendered their citizenships at this point. They're global citizens.
Yeah.
So fuck them.
So we're gonna flip this around to some Canadian exceptionalism. This is a thread I found. We'll toss the link in the description, and it's all about perceptions of Canadians throughout World War I and World War II and their performance. And it was spurred on by this meme. This guy basically said, like, Canadians are too nice. Their men must be beta males, like in quote. And then it's an example of badass looking Canadians. I think they have like Keanu Reeves. I don't know if is he Canadian? I don't know. And then Ryan Gosling. Anyways, it's like someone better get the memo. Someone better give these Canadian betas the memo, and the implication is, oh yeah, Canadians are actually tough. Like, look at the examples. And the guy jumps in, and he says, I
dare that guy to go to Prairie River and start a fight at the hotel.
Yeah. Well, I think the original guy was making the point that no, like, Canadians actually are tough, and people calling Canadians beta are misled. So then this guy was jumping on to outline concrete examples of Canadian exceptionalism to prove the nice guy idea wrong. So he starts us off by saying, Canada also punched very far above its weight class in both world wars. In World War I, Canadian Expeditionary Force was one of the only Allied armies able to consistently gain ground. In World War II, the Royal Canadian Navy covered 50% of anti-sub convoy duties in the Atlantic by war's end. And then, so I'll go on. I'll just read through the whole thread because I think there's a lot of interesting facts that most Canadians probably aren't aware of. About, we have this general idea of Canadians being the tough guys in the war, or at least somewhat punching above the weight, but we don't usually see the concrete examples. So we'll go through them. Feel free to jump in if there's anything that sticks out to you and you want to touch on in a moment. But Here we go. So Canadian fighter pilots also supplied 4 of the top 12 aces of World War One. Canada was nearly
including Billy
exclusively
Bishop.
English. Yes, yes, Billy Bishop, and then he tossed in a little comic, basically. I won't read through the whole comment; it's in the thread, but basically amounts to saying, "Here's the school for here's Billy Bishop's flying school, and essentially you just got to win. That's it. This is advice. If you
Yeah.
want to, if you want to be like me, you got to just win." And then someone asks, "What explains the incredible efficiency?" And he says, "Canada was nearly exclusively English outside Quebec and First Nations. There's very high patriotism. Australians and New Zealanders also performed well, but were in more distant theaters of war. And then the Australians got chewed up in the hell pit of Gallipoli."
Oh yeah, Gallipoli. Yeah.
Mm, Gallipoli. There you go. Yeah.
Um, yeah, all three had a very similar characteristic. I'll shake any Australian New Zealander's hand over that.
Hmm.
I think we're all on par that way, kind of.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of common ground between
Dan,
us.
Dan Carlin noted in his History of World War One there that, or I only know popular history. I never read the fancy books because I'm not a fancy man.
Yeah.
But he noted that the Canadians and Australians were feared because they'd be laughing as they went into battle.
Yeah. That's funny because I know guys I've played with in sports at various times. Like a lot of times, your fighter on your team is a guy that like laughs while he's fighting. Like he gets it. He doesn't have this angry look on his face when he gets into his fight and like the gloves go down on the
Yeah.
ice or on the floor.
Ty
The guy
Domi.
just like big smile on his face. He's getting punches with a smile, and he's giving punches with a smile.
That reminds me
So
of
I think
Ty
it's
Domi so much.
yeah. So it remains true to this day. Like we've said this before, but we are still those guys. It's the same guys still. We said that on that episode that we talked about Leo Major. So we'll go on with this thread. One of the key ingredients was be English, but with proper nutrition and at-home practice shooting, thanks to wilderness hunting, not allowed in the homeland. When the old lion roared, the cubs came running, their coats glossy and clean, with their fangs unweathered. So basically, Canada, in contrast to the UK, the English that were in Canada had much better nutrition and had much more time to practice at home because we were able to hunt, and in the UK it wasn't really common for them to be able
Yeah.
to hunt.
Well, the BEF was really good. Like their actual
Hmm.
standing army. Their recruits less so. They did what they're good,
Right.
good enough. Like they're fine, but yeah, not as good.
And then another ingredient was sky high esprit de corps. The Canadians were kept in a tight formation that mostly operated with other Canadians and eventually earned the right to be commanded by a Canadian, not Homelander, General. Curry masterminded that. General Curry masterminded Vimy Ridge. Um, so this is some of the stuff that we saw in that when we discussed the movie Devil's Brigade, the tight formation, operated with other Canadians, commanded by Canadians, and that seemed to work. Be a big recipe for success. Um, Canadian Expeditionary Force was recognized as an outstanding fighting unit early in the war and was not given normal trench holding duties that sapped at morale and encouraged a live and let live attitude. By contrast, Canadians meant business. And then he's responding to another comment about the Germans predicting Allied offenses by looking for where the Canadians were stationed. And then by the end of World War II, Canada had the third largest navy in the world. So yeah, like it was the expeditionary force was such a force of nature that the Germans had to look to where those guys are stationed because those are the guys that were moving forward. They weren't the ones sitting holding the trenches; they're the ones pushing forward. So yeah, again, force to be reckoned with. And then when Canadians moved onto a frontline segment, cross-trench communications ceased, while sniper activity, nighttime raids, tunneling all exploded. The context for all this activity was the first Canadian battle in World War One, the second battle of Ypres, the first mass use of Germany by poison gas, was on
Oh,
the Western
one of
Front.
my grandpas got hit by that and had breathing
Uh-huh.
problems his whole life after.
Yeah, yeah. No, so in this situation, the gas broke the French division on the right and the British division on the left, but the Canadians held. Um, and then George Nasmith was the head of the Canadian Expeditionary Force, field ambulance officer, and he was the one that passed the order. And this is famous, I'm sure. If you know anything about the Canadians or World War One, this classic story of um, the order to use urine to counteract the gas. So George Nasmith get everyone to piss on some rags, put it in their face so that they could hold strong under the mustard gas. So again, impressive. The guys, your left and your right flanks are breaking, and then the Canadians are just shoving piss in their face so they can continue forward.
Hey, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid.
That's a it's a good phrase. Good line there. So this group of young Canadians, mostly led by slightly older Canadians, had just crossed the ocean, finally getting some 9 months after the war's start. They were the most patriotic volunteers in the whole Dominion. They did reported later that they didn't know retreat was an option. So yeah, in this situation, part of like they just kept pushing forward because they thought they weren't allowed to stop.
Yeah,
And you know what? That's I'm gonna say that's pretty Canadian trait,
yeah, it just
honestly.
doesn't
This
really
is
occur to
one of those
us.
under yeah. I mean, so again, it goes kind of under the radar. I don't think a lot of guys touch on this, but yeah, I would say there's some essence in Canadians that has that notion, whatever it is oh, like I didn't know I was allowed to give up. Like I thought I could only go forward.
I've never
You
seen
kind of have to have that attitude.
even our weak guys who are getting beat up outside the bar. I've never seen them just give up and run away. They always
Yeah.
just get beat the shit up, you know.
No, I've seen that. I've seen this like boxing with guys. Is yeah, they'll just like keep getting hit over and over again, and then the fight's done, and you're like, hey man, are you okay?
I didn't hear no bell.
It's like man, you did real bad there. Like you didn't have to take that all. And the guy's just like, oh well, I mean, I thought you're supposed to. I thought you're supposed to just take it on the chin. It's like, well, no, but good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after this example of the mustard gas, Canadian exceptionalism became a self-rolling snowball. The High Command preserved the Canadians as an elite force. The old hands taught the new arrivals what the Germans were like, and the Canadian night activities ensured that the Germans did act like that. But again, to share credit, the Australians also performed magnificently. The only reason their contribution to the war is less clear is that a certain sea lord had a bright idea to jam them onto the narrow beach overlooked by Ottoman shells for 10 months. Lastly, this Canadians were saddled with hunks of junk that was the Ross rifle early in the war and had to scrounge for decent arms. And he's responding to another comment. Can-do attitude was a large part for Canadians. They had a big reputation of making do with junk gear and cast-off equipment in both wars. Fix it, alter it, make it work. No excuses. Get her done.
Yeah. Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yep.
I
And I
mean,
think
if you're
again
listening
that's
to
one of
this, you're
those.
making do with a pretty ramshackle podcast.
No, that's exactly it. So it's just make do with what you got, and you just keep going. And again, a lot of the stuff that is coming out in this thread, I mean, it makes sense when you're coming from the stock that was surviving in Canada. Like, you kind of have to do all this. All these things kind of have to be part of your spirit, because otherwise you're not going to make it out here.
Yeah. Nothing worse than a whiner when when you got fucking lake water in your boots and fucking mosquitoes at you and all that. Someone
Yeah.
bitching is just one more mosquito, really. I think.
No, and I still like that the make do attitude is like you get what you get, guys, and we'll just make it work. You You don't necessarily need the best. We just need to make it work. And then, carrying on, the Canadian Expeditionary Force totaled 600,000 personnel, which is about 100,000 of that was frontline soldiers by the war's end. Canada had a population of 8 million at the time, so about 7.5% of the population was shipped off to Europe.
Good turnout.
He says it would be like sending 24.8 million Americans to East Asia in the current day. Oh, and in World War II, the Canadians were used to experiment with amphibious landing tactics since no other unit had a hope in hell of succeeding. They still failed, but were very valuable lessons were learned for D-Day.
Yeah, Gallipoli again should be mentioned there because
yeah, Gallipoli, and then Juno Beach was Canada.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're expecting. I remember just listening about Gallipoli, and they're expecting to land fairly clear, but they were all set up in the jungles there, opened up with full machine gun fire in their boats. Just a absolute slaughter.
Yeah, and then so to finish off, he says back on the beach landing. So Juno was the east end. The Canadians eventually liberated Holland, which they managed quickly enough that the Nazis weren't willing or able to flood the country by blowing up the dikes. The Netherlands sends 100,000 tulips to Canada every year, which are planted in Ottawa. And I think that would have also involved the whole segment we did on Leo Major as well, and liberating that town.
Yeah,
that Dutch town.
It was Leo Major and a few other Canadians.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but they did. We did good work there. And yeah, Canadians hold 3 of the top longest distance confirmed sniper kills in human history.
Hey,
so
you know who else we rescued purportedly who doesn't send us 100,000 tulips?
Who?
Never mind. You figure it out.
Oh, that's it should be obvious. You'd think it'd be so obvious.
I want,
and but it's a good point. It's a good rhetorical point to make because like you liberate the Netherlands in this war, and this massive. It's a very beautiful. Like you look at the pictures of the tulips there in Ottawa, and what a beautiful gesture.
It is a lovely gift.
I don't think I've heard of anything even close. Like it's like 100,000 tulips. The country donated 100,000 tulips. Not much, skin off the nose, skin off the back of the country, right? But a very nice gesture, at least.
Yeah.
And nowhere. Who else? Who else is gifted in that? No, I don't.
No, I guess
not. Kind of ungrateful, if you ask me.
Unless Seinfeld is that.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm not gonna take that. It's not personalized enough. Anyways, I do want to the 3 of the top 6 longest distance confirmed snipers kills in history. That's pretty. That's again punching way above your weight. Because for the size that Canada is, and the size of our military, and across the time period, from the past century, for us to again have that many exceptional, it just makes you ask, and Canadians should be constantly asking themselves this: what made us like that? What made us produce that much that we can swing so heavy?
I think a space to grow, because you never hear about Toronto boys as much. Although they, in arts and theater, some of them fine. I shouldn't shit on them like that. Poor old dimes, But I think space to grow kind of factors in. There's like a feeling of when there's a feeling in a room, a plant will get bigger.
Yeah.
It's more of a spiritual space in this case, because I think when you actually get down to the density, I'm pretty sure living in a 200,000 town in Canada is about the same as living in a 200,000 town in America,
Yep.
But the people. It's the sort of people who we come from. It's our ancestors largely. That much is known. Where they're the kind of people who would go do such a thing. Is move to the prairies or the Yukon or the Laurentian. Oh, my hippie girl just brought back my laundry. I forgot. So all is well.
Oh, well, it always resolves itself, doesn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say it resolved itself, but I get by with a little help from my
For
friends.
all intents and purposes, it resolved
Yes,
itself.
yes.
We'll say that.
I fed her a good chili, so she's in a good mood.
See, it's all coming together.
Uh,
So I think that that thread that we just went through speaks for itself pretty well. But it's one of those things that you, the listener, needs to continually remind themselves. Yeah, and I think you need to keep looking for these examples from your own heritage and picking up on that trend, because it's kind of one of these things where you need to know where you come from so you can lean into your archetype, lean into what you're good at. These kind of examples, not everyone needs to be the top 3 out of 6 sniper shots in the world. I'm not saying that every Canadian is a Canadian exceptionalist, but what I'm saying here is that you have a rich history of having that grit and that capacity to make do with the situation you've been granted, and then despite even a garbage situation, still managing to punch above your weight. So it doesn't necessarily require you to be the absolute best. It just requires you to have the ruggedness to make do with the position you're in. And when you know that, and we know that's your part of your spirit, then you can act according to the demands of your age and be that much more effective. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from learning about your heritage. And you need to, instead of getting all down about the state of Canada as it is now, develop your appreciation for who you are.
right on. Some of this reminded me of a completely separate thing, and it's a fishing story.
Uh-huh.
But I got it from the old Saskies I work with. And for those who don't know, a
Nice.
Sasky is a guy who just likes to skidoo and fish and go up to the lake and work, but not on the weekends because he's drinking and fishing usually, or sledding.
The good life.
The good life. So I learned about burbot. You ever hear of these things?
Nah.
A
What's
burbot,
that?
they're great big. They got this weird mottled. It's a fish, right? But they got this mottled skin like a what do you call them? Salamander, and they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like eels and all this, and they taste so gross because they're bottom feeders, right? But
Yep.
if you cut
Nasty.
the straps off their back up to just a certain point, you can cut that into discs, and they call it like prairie scallops.
Huh.
The,
Does that part taste good?
that part tastes good. You got to stop where it turns yellow.
Huh.
And you can pull some of these out of the lakes in the winter, right? That are real decent size, 30 pounds. Sometimes guys cut the straps off and throw them back in. But that seems mean to me. But, you know, sad day for you if you catch one and his straps are already gone.
Yeah, that would be rough.
That's my fishing story for the day.
Well, that's it's interesting little tidbit there.
Just I wanted
Good
to I
way
want to give
to
people a bit of a flavor of Saskatchewan here.
yeah. Flavor of Saskatchewan. That's your delicacy. You got to go ice fishing in
I
Saskatchewan.
don't, I never do this stuff. I eat all the meat. People bring me the meat and the
Yeah.
fish, and I cook it up good. I've been cooking a lot of game meat and fish and stuff, because especially hippie girls' brothers hunt
No,
and
it's
stuff. I mean,
yeah, no,
it's
it is
great.
good. It is really good. The only
Homemade
the
jerky.
thing is now, thing is now though, is to actually to go from not having had the experience of being someone that goes out and gets their own meat, does their own stuff, to just jumping into it, is you need to have a decent amount of money to get into it, right? It's not
Yeah,
like in the past where you just picked it up as your father did it. Like, no, now you need to have a substantial amount of extra cash to have the material, and the free time to go learn it and do it.
Yeah, you need the friends to introduce it to you because they'll have some extra
Yeah,
gear for you and
basically.
stuff like that. I'll try and get set up enough and then can have some of you guys out. But
That'd be pretty
I
based.
got a few other priorities to worry about first, but it's coming.
No, no, that's totally understandable. So the next thing we wanted to shift to, we mentioned this at the start of the show, is I was thinking about why don't we have more guys aiming at taking up positions as different types of business owners, for example, places that you can create spaces. Because we think way too much in strictly political terms. And it's always what positions are associated with political power, and it's all these political theories. And well, what's the best theory for getting your guy in power? And well, the only positions that matter are the ones that are related to our modern or our current understanding of these political systems. And then so we end up missing the wider social cultural realm. And this is the thing is the social cultural realm is where you can have these leaders develop and interact, and gives them a space that they can develop themselves. But we jump the gun and we cart before the horse type deal. So
Well, I mean, we have one
one thing I
friend
see all
who
the
has a
time.
good trade job company that he can hire quite a few of our guys, you know?
Yeah,
Is
no,
that the kind of thing
I'm
you're
not.
talking about?
Well, no, what well, it's that, and we've talked about this before, where yeah, you got like businesses and you interact, and we've talked about this devolutionary approach where you kind of develop a more decentralized social groups that are not really tied into mass culture as much anymore. What I'm more speaking to is we're not really bought into that notion yet, and what people are still really bought into is again political leaders and win politics according to whatever. It doesn't matter what notion of politics they have. Maybe they're still caught up in like oh, where it's a battle against global communism or something, or it's this neo-reactionary, whatever approach. It doesn't matter. Like what I'm saying is, none of that stuff matters at this point because you need your own spaces. So one example I would say, yeah, we talked about you have a friend that has a business can hire you guys, but that's not really building a social space necessarily.
Mm.
You got to think about like a restaurant or a barber shop, right?
Mm.
I was actually having a conversation with my hairdresser who made the point that um, everyone thinks hairdressers have to be like gay men now. And you think back like even half a century ago, and the norm was usually men running a barber shop, and you go and hang out there like
Well,
as a place to
I'll
interact.
tell you, Charles. I still go to an old timey barber like that. Like he doesn't take appointments. You go sit on a
Yeah.
chair, and everyone chats about sports, whatever. His name's Ron, and he's getting old. His eyes are bad. That's why I always got such shit haircuts. He's just been mangling it,
No, but
frankly.
but what I'm saying is, yeah, but yours is sort of an
He's
exception
just getting old.
to
He's
the
getting old.
rule. Yeah. Um, like you don't see guys going out and buying a barber shop, getting the barber like
Barber's a great one. It's like so low overhead. You just got to
it's like
pay
it's
rent.
like because you could just yeah. Well, and it's you tell your buddies like come on over, we'll get haircuts and we'll hang out and we'll talk, and it's just your guys in the shop for that whatever hour. And actually, I know a lot of like the immigrant barbers do this,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
you're the one guy has a barber shop, and all the boys in the area come and hang out in the middle of the day, and they go. So it's about having that social space. Same thing when you own a restaurant.
If we need to
Yeah, you're
get,
obviously going to serve the public.
yeah.
You're going to serve the public for a certain amount of time, but you might have the section of the day where it's just the guys come and hang out, and they support the business, and it's a space for them. And um, again, you can't have just atomized leadership positions outside of like they're just doing their own thing in the political realm. Like they have to have some rootedness at some space to interact and develop it. And my whole point with this is so many people within our whatever the sphere is are so caught up on that political realm. None of them are going to take these positions to actually build the communal spaces that you need. Because a barber is below X, Y, or Z, or I couldn't own a restaurant. And that's not saying I'm not saying it's easy just to jump into those positions, but what I'm saying is it's almost like no one has any notion of doing that at all.
Right.
I don't see
You're
anyone.
right. I've never heard anyone talk about that.
So how are you supposed
excellent.
to? How are you supposed to talk about? Oh yeah, like we need to completely. We need to completely win over the whole political system, and every position is our guy, or whatever. How do you talk about that, and you don't even have a place to hang out with? Hang out with your with guys that you know?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? Because any other time in history that you can point to with certain guys getting the power or whatever, certain leaders, certain parties, whatever whatever the case may be.
How about a coffee shop?
Even and
That's
it doesn't
low
have to be like a
overhead too.
revolutionary sense. Sorry, what was that?
Coffee shops low overhead too, and almost anyone
Yep,
can do it.
yep, yep. That's another perfect example. Um, and the thing is, it doesn't even have to be this like space. It has a notion of a revolutionary group. Like look at in the past. So you don't need to point to a revolutionary group in the past to say, okay, well look at because like even just normal regular politics without any sort of revolution associated with them, all those leaders still had places that they frequented in communities. And so you can't really be here in the now and say, oh, just win at politics and then you win. It's like, no, you really do need to have some sort of communal bonding area and space that you can claim for yourself before anything else really matters.
The way we
Because
claimed
none of this,
Telegram, but
yeah,
like
well,
in real
yeah,
life.
that's a good example of the modern, some of the new modern spaces that we can capitalize on. But like I said, it's just silly to completely ignore this whole realm of things and to. I think Keith Woods posted a survey the other day. I don't know. Did you see this?
Yeah, what people are doing. I don't like
And
to
there's
engage in that while I'm involved in a podcast because I don't want to seem like I'm asking for donations or anything like that. But
what? Well, no. That's what are you? What?
yeah, about 20 or 30% of the people said they just basically do nothing at all.
Over 30% do nothing. So that the point isn't about ask like who cares? Like who cares if you're asking? Like it's not about asking for
Whoops.
money or that aspect of things. It's about like you just have 30% of guys that's not doing anything. Like you know everything and you're just not doing anything. And a lot of the guys that aren't doing anything are just sitting and complaining online. So you're not even willing to take a position. I don't know, like go figure out how to own a gas station or go figure out how to own a coffee shop or something. Like you can at least do that, but you're
Yeah,
doing nothing, right? And again, I don't want to say okay, it's just easy to do all that stuff and you can just do it, but someone who is like you're sitting online and complaining, well, there's a whole new venture that can be done. Um, so I think it's
I
just important to bring in a wider variety of notions of what actually is important here.
anything you're doing is good. And if you're focused more inward on self improvement right now, or developing your friends and family and stuff, if you're doing it for yourself and for the race, then I actually have no complaints. I hope that you're become an effective enough person. You have a little extra energy and time to give something back and to try and like build the thing outward more. Start with yourself. That's fine. Don't stay with yourself forever. The goal is to get strong enough you can lift more than your own weight.
Yeah, and that's physically and metaphorically. And just to cap that off, it doesn't really matter if you're not doing something right this instant. Because again, I think we sometimes we jump the gun and say like, oh yeah, like the house is on fire, it's burning down, and we run in, sprint in there, and just do something. It's like, well, no, that's how you just get yourself killed while you're at it. Like now you're burning up in the fire, you didn't do anything. But it is to say that before you get all black pilled and or get too entangled within a purely political approach to these sorts of questions, take a step back and see how much more there is, how many more avenues of engagement there are. And once you kind of can perceive that, maybe you're not there, but at least perceive the wider level of approaches that you can take, and then maybe you won't be as annoying online. Maybe you won't be demanding an empire while you're just like an anonymous guy.
Yeah, I don't see the
right?
old family men acting this way, even though they got the least time of anybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of it too, is just maybe it doesn't have to be a barbershop or whatever, but maybe there's just some responsibility somewhere. And then suddenly you're forced to engage in something, you're accountable to something, and that makes it easier to be accountable to other things. And maybe that turns into a community space that you run for your guys. Or maybe that's not your role, maybe it's something else. But at the very least, stop focusing so much on the political positions that you lose sight of actually developing the networks that you need to thrive and that other people need to thrive, because
in a very real
other
way,
people are going to end up relying on
in
you.
a very real way, politics has devolved to the point that taking a political stance doesn't mean anything anymore. It's like putting on a different color jersey or something, or like putting on a different, like politics is so decentralized that it's almost that just the day-to-day life is the politics. There's there's no larger body to go after. There's no there's not just no political solution. There's no domain of politics.
Yeah. There's definitely no domain of politics in the way that we traditionally understand it. Again, it acts more as a sort of it's like it's still a space of engagement and discussion, and it can be pushed in certain directions, right? It's like when you see, I don't know, what's his name, Dilbert guy,
Scott Adams.
When you see Scott Adams talking about some of these issues, right? Or when you see Matt Walsh talking about some of these issues, some of these commentators, politicians, potentially being forced to talk about the issues a little bit because they've been pushed in other directions. But like you said, and this is one of the running themes that we'll keep bringing up, is no, the power or the political is really becoming a more localized aspect, and it matters about who are you connected with on that local level.
I'll add a caveat. It's good that some of our guys are involved in politics, and some of them are, especially in local politics, taking over school councils and city halls and stuff like that. That's good. We're not putting that down. It's just there's more, like there's other avenues, and most of them more promising.
It's about recognizing that, like, it's not necessarily always about having to lobby or get elected or these things, or be elected for provincial government or be elected for, none of these things matter as much when, as you said, that those political realms aren't really the space of operation.
Everybody hates the people in charge right now, and it doesn't affect them at all. You know, like there's, what are you gonna like win over hearts and minds? It's no. It's collectivize with the lads.
Right. Yeah, you can just be you and your guys. So, just make sure you have your guys, and make sure you have those spaces for your guys.
I'm an authoritarian collectivist. I just want to I just want to make all the Ayn Rand fans we haven't alienated left, make sure they leave.
Yeah, well, or make sure they just change their mind.
Better yet. We a lot of us were libertarians. It's forgivable as long as you repent and stomp on your Gadsden flag with a pair of black boots.
Go back and tread on that
Kill
snake.
that fucking snake. Snakes
Do
are
do
awful.
tread on it.
Snakes should be killed and
Yeah,
stomped
why
on.
would that? Yeah, why? That's such a stupid flag, honestly.
It's like stomping on Satan.
Snakes. Why would you? Yeah, why would you associate with a snake? Like, don't tread on me. No, the serpent's supposed to be treaded on. It's supposed to have its head crushed in by the heel.
That's right. That's God's punishment against Satan, wasn't it? To
Yep.
slither around. Typical.
Yeah, no. When you think about it, how yeah, just the whole messaging of the libertarian that flag in particular, is completely. I think it associates more with the devil than it does anything else. And I guess that absolute freedom that they
Well, that I
demand is
mean,
kind of
it's indistinguishable from
very
the
symbolic.
Anton LaVey Satanists, or
Right.
the what is it? The original Assassin's Creed is like the ones from Arabia or whatever was everything is possible, all is nothing is forbidden, something like that,
Oh
right?
yeah. Right. Right.
Um, yeah, yeah. So we go on and on about that. Yeah. Anyway, set set good and moral limits. That's actually the stance to take.
Exactly. Have an absolute limit, like we said with George Grant. Your categorical limit.
Yes.
Sorry, but you need principles and you need morals, and there's no getting around that.
Yeah.
No, I think those are all the main topics I wanted to hit on today. Did you have anything else in mind? I do have a story that we could finish out on if you don't have anything else.
No, you go for it. I think I saw a lot of interesting stuff this week. I wake up nice and early now to shitpost. I get like
Oh,
I've
nice.
only got half an hour in the day to shitpost, and it's when I wake up at 6:30. So
It's a good routine.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Go to my Telegram and see the fruits of that labor. It's not my best stuff, but I'm getting by.
And people are sharing NP's deranged rants. So
Yeah, shout out to old Sweepy. Anyway,
yeah, you got it. There's one story I have. Um, so I was at some event at some pub night or something like that, and one of the girls there was talking about um, her brother being a real like just shithead, like just goofing off. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what was he doing? And then so she says, oh, and this is keep in mind, this is a white girl, so just look like a white Zoomer kid, basically. I guess he was like 20, early 20s, and she says, okay, well, he's just started dating this Muslim girl. I'm like, okay,
mm,
and apparently he likes to make jokes. He likes to goof around a bit, and I guess what he did with his new Muslim girlfriend is that he had her over for a family dinner. I think it might have been Easter or something, and he told her, he said, "Oh yeah, just s- sorry about this, but you just got to be aware that my parents really hate brown people, so watch out." And then the girl's like, "This that's not true at all. Like he just made that up." But he told this, I guess, a Zoomer just decided, this dating a Muslim girl, and decided to like prank her by telling her that his parents were just massive racists, and that she was gonna go over for dinner, and then she's gonna get accosted by them. But he's like, "Don't worry about it." And there's something just so there's so many things there to touch on.
I don't. I feel like this could really tear our audience apart, whether that was based or not. Leave a comment
Yeah,
below if you think
that's
that was
that's
based.
so
Leave a comment below if you think that was not based. I'm up in the air. We've reached
I
Schrodinger's baseness here. I can't decide.
this is like
It's either the
peak
worst thing I
Zoomer,
ever
like,
heard or the best. It's not good,
yeah, this is no.
but it's awesome, but it's terrible. Hmm.
It's one of the like it's just such a Zoomer thing.
Yeah, they're just so full of shit. Those little
Like
buggers.
what is going on in your head? Like there's so many angles to that.
What's the
And the fact,
joke? What's the punchline?
yeah.
I'm too old for this shit, Charles. I don't understand.
No, it literally confused me. I was just sitting there, because normally I would have something to say on some, but I didn't really have anything. I had nothing to contribute to that.
If this guy's out there, I want to bring you on the show and I want to pick your brain. I want to hear what makes you tick. What made you think that was a good idea? How you thought that would end well for anyone or score you points or be funny. And yet it is. And it
Well,
probably
apparently,
did.
yeah. Well, I mean, apparently, and that's the thing. Apparently, the girl stuck with him, like still dating. And I mean, that's a whole other thing. Is I'm gonna call you out, Muslims. What?
Winkler
Why
said
are,
sounds like
why
a
are you?
Zoomer Manslow.
Yeah, that's harsh indictment of Manslow.
I wa-
But what I want to know, like this is one of those things with it's like Muslims in liberal countries. Like, what are you doing where your your daughter can just date non-Muslims? Like, do you
yeah,
not think
yeah.
that
Where are her parents?
that gap is kind of uncrossable unless
It was
like
Easter dinner. They
one
were
person,
probably eating
someone's gonna,
ham.
yeah. She's like, it's probably during Ramadan, something like she can,
It was during Ramadan.
yeah. So that's one of those things. It's those like clash of cultures on top of all of this goofy Zoomer nonsense. The clash of cultures that comes within this realm that we live in. It's like someone here is going to have to lose their identity and their faith in that whole. Like, who knows if it actually stays together, right? If it continues to work out. But the question is,
I'd let her keep her faith and then I'd beat her. I'd convert to Islam.
so,
So I could. No, never mind. That's
well,
terrible.
I don't know what the actual rules surrounding that really
Well,
are. So
surely.
won't comment.
Okay, no, I would. I wouldn't
But
do that.
but
Baby girl
again,
probably
it's one of those
overheard that.
things.
She
Yeah,
knows. She knows.
it's one of those things.
Sorry, go on.
It's just they're only options. Well, I guess there's three options. There's number one, conversion to Islam in the one way. Number two, um, conversion to Christianity. Probably not even that Christian, really. But the more likely outcome is that you end up just in this this um,
Yeah,
purgatory state
yeah.
where you're kind of like not really either of those things, and you're just both secular, and you both don't really have any identity, and you kind of just drop everything because, well, that's what you do. That's just what you do in liberal democracies. You don't really get to keep your faith if you're Islam, a Muslim. You don't really get to keep your faith if you're a Christian, unless you are fully embedded within that and you completely uh, push aside the secular liberal state and the norms of that culture. So that's a whole other aspect of this. It's kind of goofy.
Maybe they can unite around hating the Jews.
I don't think that would come into the question. I mean, maybe this guy, maybe if he's willing to make those jokes, he gets it. So you never know.
Great question. I hope I didn't get us kicked off YouTube with all this talk today. I should maybe go through and censor us. But well.
Yeah,
If not, we move
that's
to
the only
Odyssey.
thing that the live aspect is.
Yeah. I'd hate to
Gotta-
lose our 10 YouTube viewers, but I feel like we could probably move them to Odyssey without much fuss.
Well, probably.
So I'll say, yeah. And then I can play whatever music I want to.
That's fair. Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll keep trucking along. Anyways, I think that's all I have for tonight.
Yep. Yep. I'm going to maybe go watch the second Blade Runner. Or maybe, but I'll fall asleep 10 minutes in. Because my bedtime's pretty early nowadays.
Yeah, and that movie is kind of comfy and aesthetic, so it probably would put you to sleep with just the atmosphere on it.
Yeah, it looks great. And Charles, so you're just, I'll tune up the music here 1 second. I'll play us out.
Sure.
Alright, got a question for you. So you're walking along in the desert and you see a tortoise on his back.
Yeah.
His feet wagging, his stomach baking in the hot sun. You hurt the tortoise. Why do you let it suffer? I'm butchering the quote. Anyway, see you next week.
See, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.